Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going deep into AI.
Specifically, large language models.
Right, large language models, the ones that, are kind of making a splash.
Yeah, you see them everywhere these days.
So what's the big deal? What can they actually do?
Well, they're not just your average chatbot. These models can tackle some seriously complex tasks,
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
like translation or like question answering, really complex stuff.
I even heard they can write, like, poems and news articles.
Yeah, and even code. It's really pretty remarkable what they can do.
So for this deep dive, we're looking at this research paper. Language models are few-shot learners.
Yeah, that's a good one. It really gets into how these models actually learn what they're capable of and even where they kind of struggle, like, things like common sense physics.
It's always interesting to see where AI stumbles. It reveals a lot about how it's thinking, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It shows where it differs from human understanding. But before we get into those nitty-gritty details, maybe we should talk about just the sheer scale of these models.
Okay, so how big are we talking?
The researchers trained 8 different models, starting with like 125 million parameters.
Parameters.
Yeah, it's basically a way to measure the complexity of the model. Anyway, they went all the way up to 175 billion parameters.
Whoa, 175 billion. That's, like, mind-bogglingly huge.
Yeah, that's GPT-3. That's the one that's been all over the news.
I've definitely heard of that one. So I'm guessing the bigger the model, the better it performs.
You got it. They found a power law trend. So basically, every time you increase the size, you get the significant boost in its capabilities.
Makes sense. So more parameters equal more brain power.
Yeah, you could say that. But here's something interesting they found. Even though GPT-3 is massively larger than, say, Roberta Large, they both required roughly the same computing power to train.
Really? That's surprising.
Yeah. It's a testament to how they focused on using those compute resources really efficiently, even when dealing with these, gigantic models.
So it's not just about brute force, it's about clever engineering too.
Right, exactly. But the size isn't even the whole story. What's really innovative is how these models learn.
Okay, so how do they learn?
Well, the researchers focused on these 3 settings: 0 shot, 1 shot, and few shot. It's all about seeing how much they can do with as little task-specific data as possible.
Like minimal training.
Right. In a way, it's similar to how we humans learn.
Okay, I like where this is going. Break it down for me. What do these shots mean?
Sure. So imagine you're teaching someone a new skill. 0 shot is like just giving them the instructions.
Okay, no practice, just instructions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then 1 shot is like giving them one example along with the instructions.
I see. And few shot.
A few examples plus the instructions. And what they found was that the few shot setting was where things got really interesting. The results were often as good as, or even better than, models that were specifically trained for a task with tons of data.
Wow, so they're like quick learners.
Exactly. It shows they can generalize their knowledge and apply it to new situations with very little specific training.
That's impressive. So what can GPT-3, this massive model, actually do well?
Oh, all sorts of things. For example, it aced something called closed book question answering.
Closed book meaning?
Like answering trivia questions without being able to look anything up.
So no Google for GPT-3.
Nope. And it actually achieved near state-of-the-art performance on something called Trivia QA.
Trivia QA?
Yeah, it's like a benchmark data set with these really challenging trivia questions.
So it must have a pretty vast knowledge base stored in its 175 billion parameters.
Yeah, and what's really cool about that closed book aspect is that it suggests that it's not just memorizing facts, it shows a deeper understanding of the information it's learned.
Okay, so it's not just a walking encyclopedia. It can actually reason.
In a way, yes, it's demonstrating a higher level of comprehension.
What else can it do?
Well, it also showed this surprising talent for translation, even for languages it hadn't seen much during training.
Really? So, like, it can learn new languages on the fly?
It's not quite on the fly, but it shows a really strong ability to pick up underlying language structures and apply them to new languages.
That's wild. It's almost like it's understanding language on a fundamental level.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Okay, so we've got a trivia master and a polyglot. What other hidden talents does this GPT-3 have?
Well, believe it or not, it can even do arithmetic. And I don't just mean memorizing answers, but actually calculating them.
You kidding?
Nope. It even showed signs of, like, carrying the 1, even though it did make a few mistakes here and there.
Just like it's learning math just like a human would, mistakes and all.
Exactly. That's what's so fascinating. It makes those classic human errors, suggesting it's engaging in real computation.
It's almost like watching a student learn.
Right. And the surprises don't stop there. It tackled those SAT-style analogy problems, unscrambled words, even learned and used completely new words.
Okay, now this is starting to sound a little too good to be true. What about creative stuff? Can it handle that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it even wrote news articles that fooled human readers over 50% of the time.
No way. So they couldn't tell it was written by an AI.
Nope. Pretty impressive, right?
It's kind of scary how good it's getting. But let's be real, even the best AI has its weaknesses, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. No AI is perfect. While GPT-3 is amazing at a lot of things, it's not without its limitations.
Like what? Spill the tea.
Well, for one, its text synthesis, while generally good, can sometimes get a little repetitive. It can also lose coherence over longer passages and sometimes even contradict itself.
So, like, it's a great storyteller, but it sometimes loses track of its own plot.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay, what else?
Another thing is, it struggled with comparison tasks, like figuring out if a word has the same meaning in different sentences, or if one sentence implies another.
So, like, subtle shades of meaning and implication.
Right, exactly. Which suggests it might have trouble with tasks that require that deeper understanding of nuance and context.
And I'm guessing those common sense physics quirks fall into that category too.
Yeah, exactly. Like knowing whether cheese melts in the fridge, it's a reminder that even with all its knowledge, it still lacks a basic understanding of the physical world.
Makes you wonder what understanding even means for an AI.
Right. It's a big philosophical question. Does GPT-3 really understand these concepts, or is it just really good at mimicking human language?
Deep stuff. So what else is in this paper?
Well, they also talk about something they call the data contamination problem.
Sounds ominous. What is that?
Well, it turns out that some of the benchmark data sets they used to test GPT-3 might have actually been included in the massive data set it was trained on.
Oh no, so it was like cheating on the test.
Kind of, like studying for an exam using a textbook that accidentally includes a few of the actual test questions.
Did they, like, know about this?
Oh yeah, they did a whole analysis of this contamination issue.
Phew. So no major scandal.
Right. They found that for the most part, it didn't really affect the results. There were a few cases, like with the Winograd and PIQA datasets, where the results might have been a bit inflated.
So they were upfront about it.
Yeah, they were very transparent about it. But contamination aside, all this talk about superpowered AI, it raises some big questions, right?
Definitely. Like, what are the implications of all this?
Right. I mean, as these models get more and more sophisticated, we really need to start thinking about the broader impacts.
And the paper actually gets into that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive into those potential impacts then. What are we looking at?
Well, one of the big concerns is the potential for misuse. Imagine like GPT-3 or even something more powerful being used to create incredibly convincing fake news.
Oh, wow, yeah. Or spam, phishing emails.
Exactly. Or even manipulating people, through really clever social engineering schemes.
It's kind of scary how easily something like that could be used for harmful purposes.
Yeah, it definitely raises some ethical questions. And then there's the whole question of how this will affect different industries and the job market.
Right, like how will this change the way we work and create and consume information?
That's the big question, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to think about all the possibilities.
Yeah, are we all going to be out of a job soon?
Well, some experts are saying, that it'll lead to a shift towards those tasks that need more creativity and critical thinking.
So AI takes over the routine stuff.
Yeah, and humans focus on the stuff that needs, like, that human spark.
Makes sense. Kind of like how automation changed manufacturing.
Right, exactly.
Some jobs disappeared, but new ones popped up that needed, human ingenuity.
Exactly. Adapt and evolve. That's the key.
So we got to keep learning new things.
Always learning.
The paper also mentions the environmental impact of all this, right? Training these huge models.
Right, yeah. All that computing power uses a lot of energy. It's a real concern.
Yeah, like how do we balance this amazing tech with, keeping the planet healthy?
Right, that's the challenge. It's like, it's like anything else. Progress often comes with trade-offs.
Yeah, got to find that balance.
Finding that balance between, pushing the boundaries of what's possible and also, being responsible.
Sustainability.
Right, exactly.
like that.
Sustainability, making sure this tech is good for the planet, for future generations.
Makes sense. So we've talked about the size of these models, what they can do, where they struggle, and the impact it all
Yeah,
has.
we've covered a lot of ground.
So what's next? Where do we go from here? What does the future hold?
That is the question, isn't it? It's a future that, we're all kind of shaping together.
That's kind of cool, actually. So what needs to happen to like bridge the gap between what AI can do and what humans can do?
Well, some people think that we just need to keep scaling up the models, feeding them even more data, giving them more computing power.
Okay, so just like bigger is better.
That's one school of thought. But there are others who say we need more, like fundamental breakthroughs in how they learn and how they represent knowledge.
So like it's not just about quantity, it's about quality too.
Exactly. Like
Ah.
you can't just, throw more data at the problem and expect it to magically become human level
It's
intelligence.
like, I don't know, trying to teach an AI to be a chef by giving it a million recipes. But maybe what it really needs is to understand taste and texture, the whole like chemistry of cooking.
That's a great analogy. It's not just about processing information, but about truly understanding it, understanding context, making inferences, and applying knowledge in new situations.
So are we still pretty far off from having AI that can really think like a human?
Yeah, it seems that way. But, the progress we're making is incredible. It's really exciting to think about the possibilities.
Yeah, like what?
I mean, imagine AI helping us solve these complex problems. You know, generate creative content, even help us understand ourselves better and the world around us.
That's a pretty cool future, but also kind of daunting.
It is. It's a future full of both promise and potential challenges.
So we got to make sure we're steering this thing in the right
Well,
direction.
yeah, exactly. It's not just about the technology, it's about our values and the kind of future we want to create.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's a big question we should all be thinking about?
Well, I think the big question is how will these uh, rapidly evolving language models, how will they change the way we interact with information? How will they change how we interact with each other, and with the world around
Big
us?
questions.
Yeah, really big questions. Will they, make us more creative? Will they help us understand things better? Or will they create new challenges that we need to be really careful about?
Right, like those ethical questions we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
It's definitely something we all need to think about, especially as AI becomes, more and more a part of our lives.
It's not going away, that's for sure.
So what do you think? What's your take on all this?
Well, I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be alive. We're witnessing the birth of something truly transformative,
Uh,
but we need to be cautious, thoughtful, and responsible in how we develop and use this technology.
Words of wisdom.
We have a responsibility not just to ourselves, but to future generations to ensure that AI is used for good.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all.
Okay, so for our listeners, what's the one thing you want them to take away from this deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is that this isn't just about bits and bytes. It's about us, about our values, and about the kind of future we want to build.
Deep.
It's deep, yeah. And it's something we all need to be a part of.
So everyone go out there, explore this topic, think about the possibilities, and talk to each other about it.
Have those conversations. Share your thoughts. Because the future of AI is, well, it's up to all of us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of large language models. Yeah, it really is mind-boggling, all the possibilities. I mean, where could this all lead?
It is. We're really at this turning point, and it's up to us to make sure it's a good turn.
For sure. And speaking of possibilities, the paper talks about these emergent abilities.
Emergent abilities.
Yeah, these are like capabilities that kind of pop up out of nowhere as the models get bigger.
Like they weren't specifically programmed to do these things, but they can suddenly do them.
So what kind of abilities are we talking about?
Well, for GPT-3, one example is its ability to generate different creative text formats, like poems, code, scripts, even musical pieces.
Wait, really? Like it can compose music?
Yeah, and all sorts of stuff like emails, letters, just by seeing a few examples.
Wow, so they're not just following instructions, they're actually being creative.
It seems that way, yeah. They can adjust their style and tone to match different creative formats, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's what we usually think of as, human creativity.
So are we going to have AI artists and poets in the future?
Maybe, but, it's important to remember that these models are still tools.
Tools for us to use.
Right. They can help us be more creative, but they don't, replace the human element.
The spark of inspiration.
Exactly. And speaking of collaboration, one of the most exciting areas is, education. Imagine like personalized learning experiences.
Tailored to each student.
Yeah, like a tutor who knows exactly how you learn best.
They would be amazing.
Yeah.
Like a 204/7 study buddy who's an expert in, well, everything.
Right. It could really revolutionize education.
But what about, the argument that this will just make us lazy?
That's a valid concern. We don't want these models to, like, replace our own critical thinking skills.
Right.
They should empower us, not make us dependent on them.
So it's all about finding that balance again, using these tools responsibly.
Exactly. It's like any powerful tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the sheer scale of these models to all the crazy things they can do, and even what it all means for the future.
It's been a really interesting exploration.
It has. So what's the final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think, the biggest takeaway is that the future isn't set in stone. It's something we're creating right now with every choice we make.
Deep. So everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
And don't be afraid to, share your thoughts and have those tough conversations about AI in the future.
Because it's a future we're all creating together. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of large language models. Until next time.